So I'd like to speak this morning about the goal I set of becoming an Eagle Scout. So when I was 14 years old, there was one goal in mind that I focused on. One thing I wanted to do above anything else, and that was become an Eagle Scout. My friend Noah Snare, he was in Boy Scouts, and he would tell me all about the fun activities they did in Boy Scouts and just everything they did. And I did some research on becoming an Eagle Scout, and I found out that there was a lot of benefits to being an Eagle Scout. Employers would give you first priority over other employees. The military would automatically bump you up 2 ranks if you joined the military if you were an Eagle Scout. So I thought, that'd be a really good thing on my resume in the future. So when I was 14 years old, I joined the Boy Scouts of America. And just to give a little bit of a background on the Boy Scouts, they started out in the late 1800s as a really good Christian-based organization. And today, unfortunately, they have gone very liberal, and they have allowed girls and lesbians and gays into the organization. And I would have recommended Boy Scouts back when I was a Boy Scout, but today, the path they have taken, I would not recommend them at all. So, anyways, so I joined when I was 14 years old, and there were some things that really stood out to me when setting the goal of becoming an Eagle Scout. Number one, setting the goal of becoming an Eagle Scout really shaped the next 2.5 years of my life. Along the way, there were hardships. Every goal that you set, no matter even if it's something that you love, there's going to be hardships along the way. It's just part of life. Some hardships for me were boring meetings. We had a meeting each week, and most of the time they were pretty boring. We just sat around, planned outings and activities, and it wasn't really that exciting. So that wasn't fun. Also, my fellow Boy Scouts used language, and that wasn't very encouraging to me. And some people can be difficult sometimes, as you all know. So those were some of the hard things that I experienced along the way, but there were good times. One thing that I remember specifically was the very last outing I did as a Boy Scout before I became an Eagle Scout. It was a winter camp, and we were camping in a cabin. And the very last day before we went home, we went sledding. And there was like 6 or 7 inches of snow on the ground. And there was this shale pit about 500 feet away from the cabin we were staying in. And it was about 8 feet high. And so it came to like an abrupt stop, and then there was like a drop. And down at the bottom of the drop, there was like, it kind of came out to a level. So what we did is we went to the top of that hill, we sled down, and we ramped off the edge of that shale pit 8 feet off the ground, and we'd land on the snow on the bottom. And it was like one of the funnest experiences I ever had in the Boy Scouts. So just good times like that, just being with my fellow Boy Scouts, learning so many good things, really were highlights of my time in the Boy Scouts. And finally, achieving the goal of becoming an Eagle Scout was the highlights of my time. So you don't know if you're going to be an Eagle Scout even after you complete all the requirements until after you have a meeting with some of the executives in the Boy Scouts. So I was really anticipating this meeting. So I was taken into this room, sat down with these 3 like really high ups in the Boy Scouts. One was my scoutmaster, one was like the executive scoutmaster in the area of Pennsylvania, and there was another man, and I forget what he was. But I sat there, and they went over all their paperwork and stuff, and I was super nervous because I had worked 2.5 years to achieve this goal, and there was the possibility that I would have failed. But finally, the final seconds came down, and after a meeting, they had sent me out of the room. I came back in, and they told me I had become an Eagle Scout. And that was the highlight of my time. So in conclusion, I would say, I'd like to read this paragraph that I wrote down. When you finally achieve the goal, you will likely find that the most valuable thing was the journey to that goal. Through the hardships, I learned to persevere and learn. Through the good times, I made memories that will last the rest of my life. So it's easy for us to set a goal and look at, achieving that goal. But one thing that's easy to forget is the path to achieving that goal is really the most valuable experience of all. Thank you.